from the World Pass. So hope you like the break. And I told them so after school some Screamer Pringles.
The work for the past year or so, and yet it was so timely. The things, the institutions being attacked, and the need for the press to stand up the way Edward R. Murrow did. You're watching what's happening with CBS, and
I'm with him, but I'm making a video right now. So hope you like it.
Oh, I think he recognized him completely. And the thing is, Murrow was an innovator of his time in terms of using technology in different ways. And I think it shows that much changes, very little changes, actually. The idea of what journalists should do is hold power to accountability is something that doesn't ever change. And at the same time, the corporate difficulties of it is still the same story over and over and over again.
It is amazing the corporate angle to this. I mean, it's got obviously great resonance with what's going on today.
You know, I actually came to CBS in 1971, and the Murrow impact was still fresh. It wasn't a distant memory.
Eric Sevareid was there.
He was there, and
one of the original Murrow boys.
Exactly, he was the quintessential Murrow boy, and he was toweringly tall. His office was above the newsroom, which was appropriate because he was above us, and he was intimidating. Even Walter Cronkite said he was intimidating. He was not comfortable in front of the television cameras at all. I also worked with a dear friend, Marvin Kalb, who you'll be interviewing.
Yeah, he's going to be there later.
And he was a diplomatic correspondent. 95 now.
One of the last of the Murrow boys actually.
Yes.
Hired. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was a time when Walter.
Well, she never said what I have to do.
But Murrow was there.
I think she said settle.
The reason why they have had power was because William Paley gave it to them. He was the founder of CBS, and his right-hand man was a man named Frank Stanton, who would go to Capitol Hill and stand up for journalism that was under attack by Washington.
Back then, I mean, Paley was head of the CBS Corporation. News, I mean,
Stanton, it was just, people I idolized. And to actually meet them and work for them was phenomenal.
It felt, this is the second time I've seen it now, both timely and dated. Timely, obviously, because demagogues then, demagogues now. Dated because the play works, because Murrow has the public credibility to stand up to a political demagogue. And when I watched it, it was with a sense of sadness that credibility has bled out of the news media over many years, so that it's hard to imagine, maybe present company accepted, but it's hard to imagine any major American journalist having the same kind of inarguable authenticity, trust of the public. That generation of Murrows and Cronkites and Abe Rosenthal's and others has just passed the scene. And it's part of that we have to acknowledge is on us. It's not just social media or bad people in politics. Part of it is on what the media has done to itself.
Well, let's drill down on that, because a Gallup poll of 2024, 18% of Americans have a high degree of trust in newspapers. That's a very low number. 45% don't. 12% have a high degree of trust in TV news. 51% don't.
Something interesting is that there's a lot of comparisons, and we are here simply because of Trump. That's the reality. I mean, McCarthyism and Trumpism have a lot of things in common. The abuse of power, on one hand, the lack of due process, we have to say, the attacks on journalists, the attacks on politicians, the attacks on activists, and also there's some kind of an ideology based on lies. Back then it was anti-communism, and now it's lies like saying that Trump won the 2020 election, or lies like saying that immigrants are criminals and terrorists as part of Tren de Aragua, which is not true. So the comparison between McCarthyism and Trumpism is right here, and that's precisely why we're here.
But I think it's different. The world is fine. We must create another McCarthy period. We must create another Watergate period the way Walter did. Cronkite stepped out of his comfort zone because he believed in facts. Murrow believed in it's not opinion, but it is an advocacy sort of a journalism. He believed in speaking truth to power.
But is the problem now too much advocacy?
No, I don't think, go ahead.
There's a difference between opinion and analysis.
I also think, you know, going to Brett's point, we have to figure out what actually came first. Was it the journalists lost credibility, or that there was a concerted effort to demonize journalism such that almost no one can have that kind of universal so-called credibility in this media environment? I think that if Murrow were doing what he was doing then today, he would be attacked as a leftist activist. And I don't think that it's an indictment on what he was doing. I think it's more an indictment on how we see the role of fact-finding, truth-telling, having values, having an allegiance to democratic values, because that's what was at the foundation of what he was doing. You're right, but I think it's a different media environment now. I mean, CBS News was one of, you know, fewer than a handful of games in town.
There were 3 broadcasts.
That's it, right? And nowadays, we're just not in that kind of world. But I think when we say that there's no trust in media, we have to ask how we got here. And journalists have always made mistakes. They made mistakes in those days too. The question is, have politicians and certain figures on both sides of the aisle found it to be politically expedient to demonize journalism?
But
Because
they've
facts
never not
are
done that.
evidence.
They've never not done that since the Revolutionary War. This has been an issue. We had a brief period during Watergate where we were fantastic, and I think we've always been under siege in some way. And as to a single person, that's never going to happen anymore.
We learned to see
There's-
during Watergate.
yeah,
too.
exactly.
Don't forget how
Absolutely.
You know, there-
But what I'm saying is there's never going to be a Cronkite again. There's never going to be a Murrow. There's going to be a lot of them. And I'm seeing so much entrepreneurship by media figures that are smaller and hitting at different places. So we have to think of a new way to deliver news to people where we don't just have one singular figure on the Upper East Side of New York.
Well, we all should do it. In other words, it's not, we shouldn't depend on one person. All of us are responsible for doing investigative reporting because that's going to save us.
Brett, I want to read something that you have actually written. You said a news media that repeatedly betrays its promise to play it straight, impoverishes and coarsens the discourse of democracy. A news media that tries to substitute capital T truth on hot-button issues like race relations and climate change for the humbler truths of cold facts and diverse views will alienate the very audiences it most needs to win over.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's sadly true. You know, the 19th century American journalism was advocacy journalism, for better or worse. 20th century journalism after Walter Lippmann was mostly objective journalism. And I think one of the problems that we have in the media today is this, to borrow a term from Jewish dietary laws, it's this mixing of milk and meat. There's too much advocacy journalism in what's supposed to be objective journalism. And then you see advocacy organizations also trying to do kind of objective reporting. And I think the public has become confused. It's difficult for them to understand what journalism ought to be. I think news organizations like CNN, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, mainstream news organizations have to be exceptionally vigilant about keeping their opinions to themselves. Reporters should wake up every day and say, I'm paid not to have an opinion. And I think that trust has been too often betrayed in the last few decades.
But sometimes you have to take a stand. Sometimes you really have to take a stand when it comes to racism, discrimination, corruption, public lies, dictatorship, human rights, the destruction of the environment. You have to take a stand as a journalist. And if we don't take a stand, if we don't challenge and question those who are in power, then who's going to do it? And I think the trust depends precisely on that, not only on reporting reality as it is, but on challenging those who are in power and people, the audience.
The question is, are you taking a stand equally when it's a Republican in office or when it's a Democrat in office?
We should. We should.
Of course.
Yeah.
But of course that doesn't happen. And that's part of the problem, and that's part of the legitimacy of the conservative complaint about too much news media. The
I don't-
exhibit A being
I don't
the
think
health of our former president.
I don't think viewers or readers are confused. They want facts. And they believe certain organizations are giving them the facts. We need to just abide by the truth, which is what Murrow did, what Cronkite did.
I do think that I have a little bit of a quibble with this idea that it's a desire for objective journalism that's driving down trust in media. Because what we've also seen in that same time frame is the rise of non-objective media, of opinion journalism really overtaking so-called objective media. So I don't think those two things can happen at the same time if you feel like people are going toward, news sources that have no opinions or what you might think are no opinions. So look, media is flawed. We're not going to get it right every time. We're not going to be perfect every time. The difference between what the media is supposed to do and what everybody on social media and on Substack and anybody who has a cell phone can do is that we have a mechanism, or we're supposed to have a mechanism for correcting our mistakes. That's the difference. It's not the absence of mistakes. It's a mechanism for correcting them. And yes, I do think doing a better job of playing it, calling the balls and strikes, put it that way, on both sides or all sides of debates is important. But I do think that there are many people out there who are taking the reduction of trust in the media and using it as an excuse to spread falsehoods. And they're gaining huge audiences for that, because I think it is incredibly comforting to people to hear things that reinforce their existing views, whether it is true or not.
Are audiences more siloed now?
Yeah, oh, totally. I mean, everywhere. They always were, though. This idea that everybody was consuming all this media.
You've written about Ben Franklin. I read a quote recently. I think you quoted, was it Jefferson, who was complaining about you can't believe anything you read in the paper these days.
Yes, remember that John Adams puts Ben Franklin's grandson in jail under the Alien and Sedition Act. So it has been bad, but there was a technological change that happened after World War II, where you couldn't just start a newspaper. Franklin starts the 12th newspaper in Philadelphia with only 3,000 people. But after World War II, you had broadcast networks, and that's what allowed there to be three big ones. You ended up having more monopoly newspapers because department stores didn't want to advertise in 12 newspapers. And so you had to have a broad-based media. But as Cara has written about, that fragments when the internet allows it to balkanize. And to get to a point that Connie said earlier on about becoming advocacy journalists, and it really is Brett's point as well, there's a wonderful line in the play where Fred Fleming, the great sainted Fred Fleming, maybe you knew him, we knew him, says to Murrow, "You're now becoming an advocacy journalist." And he says, as Chloe did, "We have to right there." And he says, "Yes, but what happens when the other people get those microphones without a
They're
value?"
never really going to, and that's the power of it.
Right.
Is these tools are so inexpensive, so everyone can be prolific in some way. And I'm sort of more behind the Christiane Amanpour thing, which is truthful but neutral. Truthful, not neutral. And I think at some point you do have to come to a conclusion. And I've seen the more popular things are people that come to conclusions based on reporting, which is at the bottom of all of it. Is really
It is more popular. Is that better?
some of it is, some of it isn't. But you're going to have to put up with it with an information environment where people get to pick and choose. And I think especially young people. I mean, the canard that they're not interested in news is just not true. They're not interested in certain news. They're not interested in the way things were or the collection of things. They're finding and picking and choosing. But to say they aren't informed, I don't know.
But the concept of neutrality, I think, is really good. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. One of the biggest problems that the television networks have is that they were taken over by corporations, which are greedy, just plain greedy.
News is expected to be a profit center for corporations, whereas
Exactly.
it seems like in those early days with Murrow,
That's right.
CBS had the $64,000 question, that was making the money, and Paley was willing to let Murrow for a while go without.
Exactly.
social media, the
Well,
internet.
you have William Paley owning CBS, David Sarnoff owning, the founder of RCA and NBC, and Leonard Goldenson, the founder of ABC. They understood that they had a responsibility to protect the public source out there, public interest. Whereas once ABC, NBC, and CBS were taken over by greedy corporations who just wanted them to be money-making machines, the ball game was over.
And I think it's important to make a distinction between truth and facts. We have a responsibility to facts, and those are ascertainable, relatively objective, and we have a responsibility to assembling those facts in a way that is comprehensive, fair, coherent, and maybe has some predictive value in telling our readers what's important, what are they going to need to know tomorrow. But I think one of the ways in which we have gone wrong is we have mistaken facts for truth. That is to say, we're responsible for standing up for one moral issue or another. Now, in our private lives, that's how we may feel and feel very strongly. But when we arrogate that kind of truth enterprise to ourselves, we are disrespecting our audience. We ought to be presenting them with facts so they can make up their own minds. And when we don't do that, they feel cheated, misled, and they become distrustful. And that distrust is what has led to this world of sort of alternative facts, everyone's own truth,
No,
kind of
it's
anarchy.
because it's flooded, Brad, because it's flooded the zone. I mean, it's like, I just, Mountainhead, if anyone's watched it, is terrific. One of the lines is information cancer, and that's what's happened. There's all this cancer. One of the characters is an AI person. He said, I have the cure. And
There's a new show on
Max,
on
which
Max.
is really successful. And one of the things is flooding the zone. And so it's not the same thing. And I don't think they sit there, they're flooded almost constantly. And so one of the points is to pull it out and try to give people some guidance. And I do think that it's a very different information environment now with all the misinformation, especially when it comes from the top.
Brett, I feel like I want to understand better what you think is the distinction between facts and truth. What is a truth that is not also a fact?
Oh, I mean, I think a truth is essentially in the eye of the beholder. A truth is a subjective moral concept about what set of facts you assemble into a reality that's your own. And that's for philosophers to discuss. What we should be doing, no, that's his truth. And we're in the business of offering facts.
Can I offer a hypothetical scenario?
Please.
I mean, what about the concept of rule of law? Is that a fact or is that a truth?
Well, of course. Well, rule of law is a value which I care deeply about, and I hope all of us do. Within the rule of law, you can contend about what actually ought to be the rule of law. But that kind of value advocacy ends up when we substitute our points of view about what the rule of law ought to be for what other people might think it ought to be. That cheapens the currency that we're dealing with, because people will look at what someone in the news presents as a truth.
What?
Usually it comes with an adjective. It's racist, it's misogynist, whatever. Right? Hang on a second. I have a different view based on a set of facts, and this is a legitimate difference of opinion. And when we stop serving just as sort of the purveyors of what is sort of the bricks of fact, trying to build a kind of idea of what we're doing brick by brick, by simply saying
no place in the news.
But
Opinion has virtually no place in the news. We cannot have opinion when we're providing information.
We're talking about Edward R. Murrow, and in this play, there's some real concrete examples here. The first case that they talk about is the case of a man who was being discharged from the military, not because of his own actions, but because of those of his family members. And so the question that they raise in the broadcast is whether this is a violation of his rights, and whether his due process rights are as important, maybe more important, than the threat of communism. To me, that is a and so I think, also talking about the Murrow era as the golden age of this type of journalism. You have to contend with the fact that he was dealing with values. And not just
EA Sports. It's in the game.
but he was asking the question of America,
Hello, Great
what is more
Person.
important to you? And what
Hello,
should be
Great
aligned with
Capri
democratic
Sun.
principles? Because we live in this democracy, and he's broadcasting in the context of this
But the
democracy.
problem with that scene is that he lets the airman speak for himself. He doesn't impose his own view on that scene, and that's why it succeeds with the audience.
We're just chatting away over here, Anderson. I'm with Graham Cleese and Clark Gregg, and we were just talking about how exciting this has been for them and just the historic nature. They just got off stage. Tell us how it was.
It was extremely exciting. Normally, I mean, it's already exciting to do this for 1,600 people in one of the biggest, classiest old Broadway theaters. But then to suddenly have that become in the millions, a show that we care about and the audience is really connecting with, it's a thrill. So thank you, CNN.
Yeah, thank you. It was amazing. I mean, the show keeps exceeding expectations, and George's enthusiasm to keep pushing it, his passion for this project is incredible. So this has been kind of a cherry on top of an incredible experience. But yeah, this weekend just wild, just wild. Yeah. Opening night energy.
Oh,
no,
I need
for
the
sure. I
charger.
mean, that's
Mine
the
is
best
at
way
6.
I can
I'm
think
sorry.
of it, but more so.
It
more
wasn't
so. I
even
mean,
me this fast.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous, but it was good. It was good energy. You didn't seem nervous.
No. You were in the pocket. You have a line you messed up?
And you know what? You know how to pull that little
Nobody
thing out?
noticed, man.
What?
People
So,
mess up
so that the
lines in
paper
life.
doesn't fall on the floor?
Since
No.
the cameras came in
Just-
Friday, it was definitely the best show
Yeah.
of the week.
Gently,
For
gently,
sure.
gently.
We were and
Underneath.
getting. I think
Underneath,
everybody just gets to
underneath.
settle in, but it takes
Look
a
where the
second,
groove
you know,
is.
when you
There's a
know the
little
cameras
groove.
are on, especially now. Yeah.
And you know, Don, you had a character that really had this
No, no,
pivotal
down,
moment
below.
in the play, Don Hallenbeck.
Look at what
Tell
you're
us
doing.
about playing him and
Go up one.
you
Go
know
up
the
one.
tragic ending.
Go up one.
Don Hollenbeck
Go
is
up
an
one.
amazing central
Yeah, right there.
character
Pull
in this.
that
He
out.
was a
There you go.
contemporary of Ed
Interesting.
Murrow's. He was a
No, Coco.
true
You learned
respected
something today, right?
journalist. They were
Okay.
the ambassadors. They were doing amazing broadcasts.
Sorry, Coca-Cola.
World War II, and he was another of the CBS early days stellar news people, and Edward Arnott was the most trusted man in America. So when he started to take on McCarthy and his cohorts, they couldn't really attack Ed Murrow, but they could attack Don Hollenbeck. And he kind of kept their feelings to themselves or drank them away. And Don
I can't do what I don't like. I want to live freely.
He handled them till he didn't. And it was
Died by suicide.
he died by suicide. Yeah.
And there was the moment in the play as well where everyone was asked, look, if you have
Wait a
any
minute.
to communists, you have to disclose it now.
Yeah. Well, it's very real. I mean, Red Scare, very real. People would disappear from their jobs, and they wouldn't be working. The rest of their colleagues wouldn't get any sort of notice or reason why they were gone. So the fear was a real thing, and it's a kind of a fantastic part that you get to sort of play that, you get to kind of live through that and the experience of it all. So
And your character actually disclosed, my wife had some time.
yeah. And it was the real moment. Everything that Murrow said in that moment, the terror in the room, we're going to go with the story, it happened. And the real Millie, who's one of the characters in the show, the real woman was saying how he was the only one to stand up, because everybody, you could find a way to sort of incriminate yourself in that situation. This is they were journalists and they were left wing, and they could probably find a way, but it was the one person who got up and said something, and that it took kind of real integrity and guts to do so. Yeah.
What do you hope the audience took away from tonight, Clark?
Well, one of the things that this show endeavors to do is it tracks an early moment when a news broadcast took on something that was happening, even though that seemed like it might run into real blowback. And they spoke truth to power. And it's at a moment when that's a very new thing. And it's, in a ways, you look back at it now and it's very idealistic what they did. And one of the things that happens is people come and they see this early moment when this happens, and then at the end there's this brilliant montage that many people just saw where you see the ways that there are so many news sources and we've lost so much trust in what we're hearing, and at the same time we desperately need someone to be telling us what the truth is and to be challenging people who aren't telling the truth.
And you see the parallels.
Yeah, I mean, I think the story really endures because it's a moment where the country is tested, and our ability to stay united as opposed to divided, and despite all the fear at the time. And so we go back to it. We go back to it because it's a moment that we can look to where we got through it, so we must be able to get through it again.
All right, Clark Gregg, Frank Kranz, thank you so much. Congratulations as well.
Yeah.
I know you have one more show tomorrow, and then the Tonys.
That's sad. Don't say
nominated
that.
5 times.
That's
I
sad.
know.
Yeah.
The show's going on the road, is my understanding. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
part of it,
Someone's
but
always gonna
it's
do
yeah.
it.
All right, thank you both so much.
Thanks for having us.
Anderson, back to you.
Pamela, thanks. Earlier this week, I spoke with George Clooney on the set of Good Night and Good Luck. Here's some of that conversation.
What do you hope people leaving this theater take away from? Well, I think it's always good to walk away reminding yourselves that we've been in tight spots before and we got through it. You know, this, if you were a newsman in 1954, you would have felt some heat. You personally would have felt some heat. And there would have been charges of you being a communist.
If I was in a newsroom in 1950, I would be outed as a homosexual.
That's exactly right. But it would have been just the same as a communist. These elements of fear, you know, what they're doing is not nearly as damaging as what we're doing to ourselves. You know, it's when you act on fear, when you start going, well, I'm going to keep quiet, or I'm going to stay in the background, or I'm going to let this thing slide. You know, the first time you let something slide because of fear, you've lost. And so we have to remember that. We have to remember who we are. We are not descended from fearful men, as Murrow says. We are not. We are. We've taken on some of the biggest challenges in the world. Yeah, we took on the Nazis when we were the paper tiger, and no one thought we could do anything. We've seen the face of evil, and we've defeated it. We're not fearful, so we need to remind ourselves of that sometimes.
There's a line in the play that when Murrow says, "The terror is in this room."
That's a line Murrow said. He actually said it. And the reason was because they were about to self-censor. And he said, then we have to go this way. Not because he thought he wanted to go.
You go.
Yet. He wanted to wait.
No, why
He
don't
thought
you
he
come
wanted
down?
to get more evidence. But then he realized
Because you're busy?
that it was now they were coming after them.
You're
And if you didn't
sleepy?
go after,
But what about, are you busy?
it's always better to be on your front foot than your back.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm
I always.
But what are you talking about?
I'm doing something.
I'm busy.
To 2,000
I'm doing
kids
something
come
on
here
the
and watch
computer.
it.
I'm the most busy one.
You going down
All of
for
our
family
references
time?
are pretty old. They're
Yes,
like,
I am.
Okay.
But
they-
Bubba,
You represent me.
and the part of it that
yes, I will represent you.
Okay. Tell everybody I love them dearly.
Okay.
And ask Mateo if he hung up his suit.
Okay. Mateo hung up his suit. I know he did. But guys, since Bubba can't come down to family time, but I can because I got
Can you put the phone down and clean up your toys?
Yeah, what?
one of the
And
toys.
pick up your wrappers that you sit here and eat every day? It's
Bundy.
and keep it and put it in the chair, babe.
The watermelon Bundy.
Okay, I'm keeping this right here. I'm keeping this for a Drago, but I need to keep this off.
This is making the barbecue.
Na na na
Well, lays on that
na
back.
na 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 na.
It's the same brand. I tried my stuff with this brand. I'm gonna go back to all my names.
On Mom today at on Mom today at
You're making me gag.
Sneaky fish.
Mom today at soccer the ball went straight for my stomach and it hit it, but I didn't get a free kick.
Sorry.
That's not a free kick, no. That's not touching the ball.
But it hit my stomach. I'm sorry. But you always want to be goalie, and then when the ball comes, you're like,
I'm gonna bring it to you. I'm gonna bring it to you.
I'm sorry. Bubba, I'm coming back to you. I'm going back to you, Bubba. Now that you're my grandma, right? I don't care. I'm gonna leave my grandma alone at any time.
Within those, within
Thanks, Barbara.
which in my experience, not uniform, but in my experience,
Yeah, I did.
definitely have kind
Yeah.
of a set of
You want some?
ideological assumptions and priors that typically lean left. And we have a
I'm very
real cultural deficit in the news media, which helps explain some of our biggest failures. Why did we fail to see Donald Trump's popularity in 2016? I think it had something to do with the fact that there were so few people in big newsrooms who knew anyone who could think of even voting for Trump. And so when you don't have viewpoint diversity in addition to the other forms of diversity, you are impoverishing your news organization's ability to understand what's happening in the world. And I think news organizations, objective news organizations,
Man, just
think
butter.
very hard about the way
No, I'm not buttering this.
cultural biases
It'd be like Frontier. Yeah, kinda. Yeah, that's not Frontier. That's not my airline. My God, okay. There you have it.
I do think it is actually a great time for media right now. I think we sit around like Clooney was saying, and we act like
A second saucy. A second sauce, a second sauce, a second sauce, a second sauce.
I graduated from Columbia, by the way. There's all kinds of really exciting things to be doing, and it doesn't. You just have to figure out a way to get an audience to trust you, and it doesn't have to be these mass audiences. It's a very different environment, but I think it's a great time.
Is there still a role for large news organizations which do have fact checkers and do have people work? I mean,
I have fact checkers, and I've figure out whether you want to have these big giant things and then media organizations and both the right and left, by the way, it's happening all over.
But a lot of what you end up discussing are things that other people have reported. And
that's on the very different environment.
This is a very important moment to be a journalist in this area of misinformation and disinformation. Journalists, we have a great advantage. It was second report by UN saying that about 60% of the influencers don't do fact checks.
Yeah, I think so.
Other people, they don't do
Oh,
fact
no.
checks.
Maybe outside.
Yeah,
No, maybe like outside the door.
on fact that we do fact checking. And let me just emphasize the other point.
Yeah.
We have to continue challenging those ones questions that if we don't do that, we're going to lose the process.
1 second. Who's still?
To answer your question, yes, you can work for the New York Times.
Mom's door
be
closed?
a Trump supporter or CNN.
Yeah, mom's
and
door
be a Trump
closed.
supporter.
So open it. She might be in your car. Come on.
No, she isn't.
Open it. Keep open.
So,
And leave it
so
open.
yes, you can, but I think Kara is right in the sense that the future is probably
That was rude that he just gave me a jump scare. He was like,
newsrooms
I was like,
because
you're like, ah, that's him.
entrepreneurs are by and large they're in their lanes, and sometimes their lanes are hyper-partisan lanes, and that has a huge audience. So where legacy media is necessary is to do the kind of deep reporting that you can't do without resources, that takes time, that requires you to go and to find sources and to talk to people and to find things out that no one would otherwise know unless they ask the questions. So that's still needed, and I'm not sure that there's a lot of that happening in some of the more kind of individual operators out there in the media world. So I think we need both, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a misnomer that in media there are no other perspectives. There are just probably fewer than you would like, and I concede that completely. I think that's right. There are just not very many conservative voices in mainstream media, and that should change.
there's no more important time than now for all of us to, in the news media, I'm not working anymore, but anyone who's in the news media, to speak to power and to not be afraid of lawsuits, not be afraid of taking a stand. When I was covering a presidential campaign, I found that the Eastern liberal establishment press was alive and well. And I guarantee you that 99% of the reporters voted for the Democrat. But they gave the Democrat such a hard time because they were unbiased and they were objective in their coverage because they were trying to be totally straight down the line. They probably didn't vote for him, but they were giving him a good deal of criticism. So what I'm saying is, we buried our partisanship. And can we not swing that pendulum back?
I mean, I'm not sure how truthful that can people really bury it?
That's what we do. As reporters, we are not supposed to give our opinion on anything. And we are supposed to get both sides of it.
But Fred, if you pointed out, it comes out in different ways, even in print.
Sure, your choice of stories, your choice of adjectives.
Can we get a little more honesty and truth and credibility and integrity back? Why can't we do that? There's no more critical time for us to bring that home again than that.
We're going to take a short break. Up next, my conversation with 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley. What lessons has he taken out of our Monroe? CBS is facing a lawsuit by the president for sale by a parent company. That's it. To understand the world, you need the truth. Now you follow the facts wherever they lead, no matter how far you have to go.
Why can't we say we're the best home shopping site? Because while true, we can't say that. What if we said it in Spanish?
Homes.com es el mejor.
No. What if he said
Homes.com. It's the best.
Homes.com?
It's the best.
As a person living with diabetes, I'm all about making progress. My progress is making smart choices to help lower my A1C with Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor. It's the little ones, baby.
Try for free at freestylelibre3.us/share.
With all new places, there's all new experiences to enjoy. Hilton, for the stay. Moving in, but your place
Optimum Fiber Internet and your Optimum TV to your new home. And get a $100 gift card. Enjoy the fastest and most reliable fiber internet with the best entertainment. And for a limited time, get Optimum Fiber starting at just $40 a month. Call 888-843-8642 or visit a store today.
Make your outdoor dreams come true. Cut! You need more emotion. Let's move on. Action! Our unique ArmorTech process keeps colors rich and they'll stay beautiful for years to come. Emphasize ArmorTech. Project more. It's not easy working with family, but with Cambridge, you can easily make your outdoor dreams come true.
I am visiting my town, the town of Longoria, in Asturias. Oh, that's nice. Es mi favorito plato de España.
Eva Longoria, Searching for Spain, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
And welcome back to News correspondent Scott Kelly. Good night and good rest of the Amendment of America and free speech and the free press under threat.
Is it the best car crash simulator? Okay, so I'm playing this mobile racing simulator for 3 days, and it's so good. Just look how realistic it is. Cars smash left and right, and the physics is just like in real life. And the best part, you don't even need Wi-Fi to play it. So try Drive CSX right now and let me know what you think.
I think are the two themes that run through both of these moments in American history. There was a fear in those days, of course, to speak out. There was a fear that it could ruin your career or ruin your business.
Murrow, in the play, talks about the terror is in this room.
The terror is in this room, meaning that it had gotten into everyone's head, the Red Scare. And so that, to me, has parallels today because I sense in the country today that there is also a fear to speak because it might wipe out your university. It might wipe out your law firm. It might ruin your career. And the theme of all of that together today is that we have to have the courage to speak as Americans. You can agree with the government or disagree with the government, but you must not be silent.
You recently gave a commencement address, and I want to play some of what you said. You talked about our sacred rule of law being under attack. Let's play that.
Our sacred rule of law is under attack. Journalism is under attack. Universities are under attack. Freedom of speech is under attack. And insidious fear is reaching through our schools, our businesses, our homes, and into our private thoughts.
You actually haven't watched this.
That's the first time I've seen it since I did the speech.
What do you make of it?
Well, I think, though I am echoing the sentiments of Edward R. Murrow and Fred Friendly, that freedom of speech is what matters in this country. You can agree with the government, you can disagree with the government, but you have the right to speak, no matter what your opinion is. And that if the government begins to punish our citizens because of what they have to say, then our country has gone terribly wrong. James Madison, who wrote the Bill of Rights, of course, as you know, said that freedom of speech is the right that guarantees all the others. He thought it was that important. And that's what I was trying to convey to the students at Wake Forest.
You could have given any kind of commencement of speech. You could have had some life lessons.
Not now.
Why make that speech now?
Because we have watched over the last many weeks law firms under attack, universities under attack, journalism under attack, in ways that we have not seen in this country in modern times. And because universities were being targeted in particular, I didn't think that I could stand up in front of a major university and give a speech that said, "You go get them, kids, you're the best." Because It was the 900-pound gorilla on the stage, and it had to be addressed. And I wanted those graduates at Wake Forest to know that history was calling them, that now is their moment. They didn't choose this time. The time chose them, and they needed to rise up and stand up for their rights, no matter where they are in the political spectrum. Stand up for the right to speak.
Were you nervous about doing it? Obviously, this is a very fraught time for the company you work for, that I work for as well, for CBS News. There's a lawsuit by the president based on unfounded allegations. It's very likely very possible the parent company will choose to settle this lawsuit. Were you nervous about doing it, and were you worried it might impact your ability or the way people perceive you as a journalist?
I was not nervous about doing it. I felt very strongly that this was something that needed to be said. It did not strike me that it would impact people's thought of me as a journalist, because part of that speech is a speech about freedom of speech. That should be non-controversial.
You're not actually mentioning the president by name in this. You don't refer to him by name.
I don't refer to him or the president or the White House or the administration. But I was talking about actions that have been taken by the government over these last many months. But there was a little bit of hysteria among some about this speech. And I simply ask you, what does it say about our country when there's hysteria about a speech that's about freedom of speech?
Has anything surprised you that you have been reporting on about this administration?
What has surprised me the most, Anderson, and I'm sure that this is something that you're running into, is how pervasive the fear is that when we at 60 Minutes call people and say, hey, will you do an interview with us? They're telling us no.
It's harder and harder to get people to talk about the administration on camera.
They do not want to be on camera. They do not want to stick their head up over the foxhole. And that is part of what the Wake Forest speech is all about, that we must not be in fear. This is exactly what Ed Murrow was saying in that editorial at the end of the McCarthy broadcast. We must not walk in fear of one another. We are not descended from fear for the future.
Joseph McCarthy, Senator, his henchman Roy Cohn, they instilled fear in a lot of people. I mean, they terrorized people.
Absolutely, they did. And they were not solely responsible for the Red Scare. McCarthy lent his name to the Red Scare, but it existed before he came along. He just capitalized on it. And because it existed, there was fear throughout the country that it could be personally destructive, that you could lose your job, you could lose your company. And I believe that we may be moving in a similar direction in the country today. People are silencing themselves for fear that the government will retaliate against them. And that's not the America that we all love.
What do you think Edward R. Murrow would think about what's happening at CBS News today?
What a great question. His producer, Fred Findley, what became president of CBS News and quit over a disagreement about covering the Vietnam War, quit in principle. I wonder if Ed might have done the same thing given our present situation. He would probably be waiting to see how this lawsuit to the president works out and how the Paramount Corporation deals with that, whether it settles the lawsuit or whether it fights. I think that would mean everything to Ed, and I also know exactly where he would be on that question. He would be for fighting.
If there is a settlement, and as part of the settlement there's an apology, how damaging is that to CBS?
Will be very damaging to CBS, to Paramount, to the reputation of those companies. I think many of the law firms that made deals with the White House are at this very moment regretting it. that doesn't look like their finest hour?
It's been a couple of weeks since Bill Owens, the executive producer of 60 Minutes, resigned in protest. Given that it's been a few weeks, how do you see what he did now?
Well, Bill's decision to resign may not have been much of a decision for him, because he was always the first person to defend the independence of 60 Minutes. Bill didn't work for Paramount. Bill worked for our viewers, and he felt very keenly about that. And so I'm not sure Bill had any choice once the corporation began to meddle in Bill's decisions about the editorial content, or just place pressure in that area. Bill felt that he didn't have the independence that honest journalism requires.
As somebody who's worked, how long have you been at CBS News?
Almost 40 years.
Almost 40 years. I mean, as somebody who's worked at CBS News almost 40 years, who has traveled the world, risked his life repeatedly, you have, what, 40 Emmys? 50? 52.
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Just personally, what does it feel like to be in this situation? It's a very strange situation. Somebody's devoted their life to news, but you and I are both, we work for a corporation that owns a news company, and what is that like for you personally?
You really wish the company was behind you 100%, right? You really wish the top echelons of the company would come out publicly and say 60 Minutes, for example, is a crown jewel of American journalism, and we stand behind it 100%. I haven't heard that. On the other hand, my work is getting on the air, and I have not had anyone outside 60 Minutes put their thumb on the scale and say, you can't say that, you should say this, you have to edit the story in this way, you should interview this person. None of that has happened. So while I would like to have that public backing, maybe the more important thing is the work is still getting on the air.
Do you still believe in journalism? Do you still believe in the role of journalists?
It is the only thing that's going to save the country. You cannot have democracy without journalism. It can't be done. The people at home need reliable, consistent information in order to make decisions about their lives and their futures and the country's future. So there is no system of democracy without journalism. We have to figure out how to keep journalism free, independent, accurate, and responsible for what it's doing. But journalism is the only profession that is protected by the Constitution of the United States. And there's a reason for that. James Madison believed that freedom of speech was the right that guaranteed all the other rights in the Bill of Rights. And so it is today.
What is your message to people about who just watched this and are worried?
It's going to take courage, as it often has, to get through this period of American history. Our forebears were called by their times to have courage, to move the country forward, and so it is with us today. The most important thing is to have the courage to speak, to not let fear permeate the country so that everyone suddenly becomes silent. If you have the courage to speak, we are safe. If you fall silent, the country is doomed.
Scarpelli, thank you very much.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Let's continue the special program. We also have some breaking news. I'm going to go right now to Los Angeles. Protesters have been clashing with law enforcement officials amid a sweeping immigration crackdown. This is the second straight day of disturbances. President Trump has ordered 2,000 National Guardsmen to be deployed, warning that the federal government will, quote, solve the problem the way it should be solved. California Governor Gavin Newsom calls that move, quote, purposefully inflammatory. At least 118 people have been arrested during operations this week, according to the Department of Homeland Security. CNN's Julia Vargas Jones is on the scene in Los Angeles. Julia, explain what's going on right now.
right now what's happening, Anderson, is protesters have come to downtown Los Angeles. We are just outside the federal building that also serves as an ICE and USCIS and the detention center for all those 118 people that you mentioned. DHS says has been arrested in the operations this week. They're saying ICE has no room, has no place here in Los Angeles, and they haven't seen that in other parts of the city as well. We saw these flashes here in downtown yesterday, but today, right now, we found protesters had set a car on fire. We saw flashes go for several hours in Paramount, California. That's just 1 hour south of Los Angeles, and the message everywhere is the same. People saying ICE should not be conducting these raids here. Now, this is part of law enforcement operations. We have heard that at least 3 of them took place in downtown Los Angeles, and we are seeing a surge of federal law enforcement, especially tonight, Anderson, as President Trump has authorized 2,000 National Guard troops to come into Los Angeles. Now, as you mentioned, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, said this will only serve as an inflammatory action to these protesters. At this time, I will say this is a small protest. We are seeing images that are shocking, but these are quite small. We were expecting a little bit more in there. We are being told from these protesters here that there will be more people coming. They want people to come and express their outrage with these actions. They say these are people that are part of Los Angeles, and families are being broken up. California is home to an estimated 10 million undocumented immigrants, and about a third of those are here in Los Angeles County. It's no surprise to see this kind of reaction from the population outside of Los Angeles, as well as from its leader. The mayor of Los Angeles, Mary Bass, said that she was angered by this.
And Julia, if you can, for our viewers, can you just explain where you are? We're showing images, 2 different images from Paramount, California. It looks like police have cordoned off one street by a large donut store in Paramount, California. Where is that? Do you know where that is in relation to you? I just want to I'm trying to get a sense of how large the area that's impacted is right now. We see the burning car, and one image on the right-hand side of our screen from KCAL, we're seeing helicopter images of one boulevard or street blocked off.
I believe those images are from Compton, California. It's about an hour south of downtown Los Angeles where we are. These have been dispersed protests. It hasn't been one march that's running through the streets. We saw ICE raids in one part of the city of LA County, I should say, that was Paramount earlier today, and that's when we started seeing those flashes. Now, these have spread. This was happening because of that targeted operation or the staging of ICE in this part of town. Now, that has spread, and those protests have also spread to other locations. That's what you're seeing on the screen right now, that car on fire. That's where what is happening.
Right, the image of the car on fire, as well as the law enforcement with the guns that is in Compton. Those are the images we're seeing right now. I should point out, Julie, you talked earlier about images which we have seen earlier of people standing in front of DHS vehicles or ICE vehicles as they. What was that? When was that? Those images that we saw.
That was from earlier today, and that was from a live stream. A woman who was from that neighborhood started recording what was happening. This is as ICE arrived. She narrates in this live stream that ICE was staging at a Home Depot, local Home Depot, where workers usually offer their services. And there was some reaction from that community, a community that is about 80% Hispanic. People came out and started to put themselves in between ICE vehicles and and block their passage, frankly, Anderson. Yesterday, we also saw similar images of community members putting themselves in front of federal officials' cars, which were unmarked white vans at this time. There were aerial images. We ran those earlier today from the Fashion District in downtown Los Angeles, as that one of the raids that I mentioned, those 3 raids that took place yesterday, was ending. This vehicle is departing, and one person gets in front of that vehicle and runs with it until they fall to the ground, and authorities are able to drive around that person. So it is remarkable to see that kind of resistance and people really putting themselves out there, standing up to federal authorities.
Julie Vargas Jones in Los Angeles, thank you. We'll continue checking with you. We're going to keep our eye on events in California. We'll be back more with our special coverage in just a moment.
On the season finale of My Happy Place,
There's something about Thailand that seemed very welcoming to me.
Simu Liu finds wonder in Bangkok.
Bottoms up, let's do this. I would like a beverage.
My Happy Place with Simu Liu, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
We're the smartest men in America. We have the resources to take over the world. Let's go.
This house might just become humanity's global.
Global. After all day. I have to say something.
Put that back where you got it. What happened? Oh, let's see. Put that thing.
What?
The charger on the table. You know how I put it on the underneath the table on the legs of the table? Under here.
Is that good?
No, under the table. Thank you. Wow.
For those 50 and up, get 2 unlimited lines for $30.
Just